The team lead said, "Do your job, not mine." So I stopped doing his job and watched him drown. I'd been working as the senior network administrator at this healthcare IT company for 7 years when Magnus decided to remind me of my place during the Friday operations briefing. We were reviewing disaster recovery protocols for our client hospital systems, and I'd noticed he'd scheduled a major server migration during their peak patient intake hours. "Magnus, this migration window conflicts with morning emergency room traffic," I said, pulling up the usage data I'd been tracking. "If we move it to the 2 a.m. window, we avoid any patient care disruption." He cut me off with that irritated expression team leads get when someone makes them look unprepared. "That's not your concern, Paige. You're network administration, not project management. Do your job, not mine. Focus on technical execution and let me handle strategic scheduling." He looked around the room to make sure everyone understood the hierarchy. "I don't need you trying to do my job when you barely handle your own." I closed my laptop while feeling 7 years of covering for his incompetence get dismissed as overstepping. "Got it. Just technical execution from now on." He nodded with satisfaction like he'd successfully put me back in my box. The very next week, Magnus scheduled 3 separate client calls without checking the on-call rotation and double-booked our entire team during a critical system upgrade. The old me would have noticed immediately, quietly rearranged the schedule, and made everything run smoothly without Magnus ever knowing he'd messed up. The new me saw the calendar conflicts, recognized they were project management issues, and did absolutely nothing because that wasn't my job. Monday morning arrived and chaos erupted. 2 clients called simultaneously for emergency support while our team was mid-upgrade with hands literally inside server racks. Magnus frantically tried to figure out who could take the calls, completely blindsided by the scheduling disaster he'd created. When he asked why I didn't flag the conflicts, I looked at him without expression. "Calendar management is project management, not network administration. You told me to do my job, not yours." His face went red, but he couldn't argue. We lost 1 client that day who got tired of waiting and switched to a competitor. Week 3 brought the server migration disaster. Magnus scheduled it for 10 a.m. like I'd warned against, right during the hospital's morning rush. The old me would have moved it without asking and saved Magnus from his own terrible planning. The new me executed the migration at exactly 10 a.m. as scheduled. Patient intake systems went offline during peak hours. Emergency room staff couldn't access records. Nurses were using paper charts for the first time in 5 years. The hospital's chief of operations called our CEO directly, furious that we'd taken down critical systems during active patient care. Magnus tried to blame the technical team for not warning him, but I pulled up the meeting recording where I'd explicitly raised the concern, and he told me to focus on technical execution, not strategic scheduling. The hospital threatened to terminate their $2 million annual contract unless Magnus was removed from their account. Month 2 was when Magnus truly started drowning. He'd been depending on me to catch his mistakes for 7 years without ever acknowledging it. Now every scheduling conflict, every missed deadline, every client communication failure hit him directly. A major software patch needed deployment across all client systems. The old me would have coordinated the rollout schedule, identified which clients needed after-hours deployment, and created the communication plan. The new me just prepared the technical patch and waited for Magnus to tell me when and where to deploy it. He never created a deployment schedule, never coordinated with clients, just assumed it would somehow happen like it always had. 3 weeks passed with the critical security patch sitting ready while Magnus was too busy putting out fires to notice. Our clients started getting vulnerability warnings, and 2 reported potential breaches that the patch would have prevented. The emergency meeting with the executive team happened on a Wednesday. Our CEO wanted to know how client satisfaction had dropped 38% in 2 months and why we had multiple security incidents from unpatched systems. Magnus came prepared with excuses about team performance and technical challenges. The CTO cut through his deflection with a question directed at me. "Paige, you've been here 7 years with perfect performance reviews. What changed?" I pulled up my documentation showing everything. The calendar conflicts I used to fix silently that now caused client service failures. The scheduling optimizations I used to implement that now resulted in system downtime during business hours. The deployment coordination I used to handle that now left critical patches uninstalled for weeks. 7 years of doing Magnus's job while he took credit for smooth operations, all documented. Then I showed them the recording from that operations briefing where Magnus had said I barely handle my own job and needed to stop trying to do his. I'd been doing exactly what he told me, just technical execution with no project management, and these are the results. The CTO stared at Magnus with disgust. "So Paige has been doing both her job and yours for 7 years, and the second she stopped covering for you, everything fell apart?" 2 weeks later, Magnus was demoted to individual contributor with no direct reports, and I was promoted to IT operations manager with a $75,000 raise and full authority over both technical execution and strategic project management. I went back to doing what I'd always done, catching problems before they became disasters, except now my title and compensation actually matched the full scope of my responsibilities, and nobody could tell me that preventing failures was doing someone else's job.